Good morning, my loves. Happy Friday. I'm in the woods and, well, this is a little bit more like it, isn't it? It's dingy and wet and it's been a long while coming. We've been desperate for some rain here in England and now we've got it. I must admit, these are my favourite kind of mornings. So, what is Virgo season bringing us? The cool winds of the Virgo energy flowed in on the 22nd, and with it what we would almost regard as a bit of welcome relief from the intensity of the Lion's Gate, which I don't think anybody will get bored of pointing out. It was an absolute cooking pot this year, and I go into every Lion's Gate since I began to learn what they mean, their significance on the ascension pathway. Whether you look at it as Lion's Gate, whether you look at it as Leo season, whether you couldn't give a toss and it means something completely different to you, whatever occurs around this time, and maybe it's kind of tied in with the weight of our expectations and our focus. As I've said previously, the portal dates such as 9/9, which we've got coming up, and the other significant, the numerologically significant dates have become that important and that powerful because we are all focused upon those days and those scenarios and what we expect. And the words, the weight of our expectations. So what do we expect? What do we create when we tune in, when we bead in on things intently, and maybe we expect an impact? I've said this before, we receive, or should I say we are blessed with 3 Mercury retrogrades a year, and everyone's just like, oh my god, it's Mercury retrograde, and it lasts for 3 weeks. It's disruptive. Me personally, I've got Mercury in Leo. I was born in a Mercury retrograde. I tend to not really receive them negatively. They tend to, it's almost like the only 9 weeks of the year that my brain functions properly. So I'm always observing how people take certain circumstances and situations, but most importantly the portal dates, and we're just on the other side of the most powerful portal period of the year. Some people might kind of like, oh, portals, it's no such thing. But when you look at what Lion's Gate actually is, it's an alignment of the Earth and Sirius. And I think there was a lot of Lyran energies involved this year, aligning with the galactic core, which opens the doorway for a stream of ascension particulates, photonic radiation, upgrades, light codes, fire letters, you name it, and that all comes streaming in. So that opens and that closes. So what's not a portal about it? It's it depends on what, I suppose, what your perspective on a portal is, really. But okay, I've digressed slightly. We're on the other side of that now, and we are moving into the kind of the more calm, grounded, organised, functional version of the astrological chart, which is the gorgeous Virgoans. And I know there's many of you out there, and it's a lovely sign because it's very focused, it's very particular, and if you look at the star sign of Virgo, it represents virgin energy, the fresh energy, the clean energy, the pure energy. So I'm feeling that coming through. You might not be feeling it quite so much at the moment, gathered from the conversations that I've had recently. And something really occurred to me this Saturday. I was in ceremony for the day. I'm going to use a different word for it. It was a workshop that I was doing with my good friend Caramaine, and it was a day-long celebration of integration. And I would say that was more from the start to the finish a ceremony than a workshop. There's very different energies. So we opened, we shared, we moved. There was beautiful sounds coming through. A meditation. I had to put my meditation and my integration in with it. But the most important thing that I personally gained from that over the course of the day, I know Karen did, and I know everybody else who attended, was the connection. Now, connection to me is becoming a priority, and that's becoming a priority over the almost like the glib superficial version of reality that we've been part of. If you think what the 3D matrix represents, it represents separation. The beings that took over at the fall of Atlantis, the ones that have been running the powers that were, I call them, because they are the powers that were. They're no longer in the driving seat that they were. They took over 10,000 years ago, and the first thing that they worked upon was separating everybody who worked better together as a unit. And if you think about what Atlantean culture was based upon, it was based upon connection, it was based upon natural order, it was based upon adherence to the spiritual laws, making sure that we honoured one another, the earth, the animals, the trees, everything around us, the crystals that we worked with, the sun in the sky, the moon, the stars, the sea, you name it. I always joke that if the Atlanteans loved it, they built a temple for it, and there were a lot of temples in Golden Atlantis. But they thrived upon their connectivity. They thrived upon their ability to be honest, open, communicate with one another from the heart, and to share. If there was something that was wrong, they would share. If there was something that was right, they would share. They would gather together in communities just simply to be, and everybody would bring something to the table. Now, when we moved into the third dimension at the fall of Atlantis, the first thing that happened was the 12 tribes of Atlantis, those of us that survived, scattered. And we all went off in different directions. And those of you that are connected to that period of time, you will probably have some kind of recollection or some kind of memory of how that felt, what occurred at the time. There's so much Atlantean trauma that is being cleared at present. We're seeing the shadow aspects of it everywhere. In all aspects of our society, it's almost like we are reliving the fall, but on a global scale. So all of these circumstances that were limited to the continent of Atlantis up until 10,000 years ago, they spread all around the world. As the 12 tribes spread, so did the beings that orchestrated the fall. And with our separation, we lost our connectivity. Yes, we moved into other tribes and other cultures. Say for myself, for example, I can clearly recall going to Egypt. And of course, when we first got there, it was a case of, right, what can we save from Atlantis? What can we resume? How can we continue as we left off the best that we can, despite being reduced from 12 chakras to 7 chakras, having our throat chakras collared so that we couldn't use them with the power that we did when we were on top of our game. And of course, all of this was agreed to, but we never realised just how tough and how dark the next 10,000 years would be. So the society that you were born into, that I was born into, unless you were blessed enough to be born into a community that's managed to separate itself from the rest of civilization, you would have been born into separation, you would have been born into limitation, you would have been born into a body that you had agreed to be erased and separated from your master, the version of you that you are becoming today. And you would have done that so you can navigate the spiritual tests and the lessons and the initiations and and all of the beautiful growth that we receive on Earth School. You know the story. And if you don't, then that's why you're here in the first place. You landed on this planet not by some random chance, because you agree because you agreed to be here, believe it or not. And all everything that occurred from the point that we were born, whether we were born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and onwards, up until the 21st of December 2012, the planet, the world, the realm that we have incarnated into has been separated. It's been separated into continents, into religions, into countries, into flag wavings, and all of these separate things, so that we are different from them. We believe different things. We have different morals, we have different values, we have different foods, we have different likes and dislikes, and all of these other things that have ultimately separated us. When we move into the fifth dimension, we will still, when we're on the other side of what we're going through at the moment, we will still retain our individuality. We will still retain our identities. We will still have the individual belief systems that we ourselves have every right to be born into. But these differences will not be creating conflict. And that is the stark difference between where we are at the moment to what we will be living with in the future. Because when you are approaching your life from the heart, when you are moving into the day with your heart, of course we will have differences, we will have little disagreements, and maybe the odd kind of, just random squabble about things, but it won't be like it is at the moment. It has been specifically orchestrated to pit human against human, human against the natural world, human against the earth. And this is all being cleverly done by the puppeteering in the background, the social engineering that we can all actually see going on with lucid visibility at the moment. And I genuinely believe in my heart that is why so many of us are feeling so traumatized and so disturbed and so literally unable to cope with the world that we are being presented with at the moment, because all of that has been revealed quite recently. Many of us knew that it was there already. We knew. I know many of you out there that maybe class yourself as the truthers have been shouting about this for a long time, trying to bring awareness to deaf ears and saying, look at this, look what's happening, look at what they're doing, look at the story underneath the bright glitzy headlines and the carnival show and all of the pretty adverts and the distractions, but that's all becoming something that we will witness as a past event. We can all see now, okay? We can all see. We can see what is right for us, and we can see what we don't want to add our energy to. Now, I've had several questions recently, and they're pertinent questions. Like every question that somebody asks has depth, it has meaning, it's come from a personal point of view. And people are asking, well, how can we not shout and fight and rail against the system? How can we possibly tolerate what we are witnessing the world out in there? And that's a very good point. It's not a case of just sitting there and letting the steamrollers ride over us. It's about finding a different way of doing things, okay? Because we've been fighting wars and shouting in the streets with pitchforks and torches for millennia. And yeah, it's achieved what we've needed it to achieve in the short term, but now we're dealing with a much larger scenario. We're looking at a unified switchover, a handing over of energies from one old guard to a new guard. And it's essential that we are very, very careful with how we do that. It's not about not being aware. It's not about not being part of something better. It's not about changing it. It's about how we do that. It's about the energy that we apply to it, how we are emotionally engaging with it, and the actual action that we are taking. So we're looking at building a new system. Okay, there is no way that the old system that we have as it is structured will serve us in a fifth dimensional frequency. That's why it's collapsing. So although there's no immediate short-term solutions for that, the more that we are working on coming together as a community, as unifying our hearts and our minds on a fifth dimensional frequency and beginning to help one another, that is where the answers lie. Not shouting at the puppets, not getting angry about it. Yes, there are atrocities occurring in the world everywhere. We know that, but that's been happening also for thousands of years. It's just we've chosen, or we haven't been exposed to it on the level that we are at the moment. And a lot of the exposure that we are receiving is done deliberately. And sometimes we don't even know if we're getting the full story or the truth from those as well. So again, discernment in what we're receiving and what we're taking in. But back to what I realised. I mean, obviously I realised it quite a while ago, is the absolute sanctity and the purity and how much we need connection at this time. To be able to step out of the whirlwind, the tornado, to move out of the flames into a safe and sacred space and just be, to share. One of the things that I'm really enjoying doing, and this is, it might be a bit of a shameless plug, but in my WAGs, every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on what month it is, one of the first things that we all do when we get online is gather round the pool in a community. Now, I know this is online because we can't all be together in physical. Some of the beautiful souls that are joining me are doing so at 4 o'clock in the morning because they're in a different time zone. Much as I'd love us all to be there together in physical, one of the blessings of social media is that we have managed to connect with one another, and the energetical connection between me and you, or you and somebody else on the other side of the world, that's instantaneous regardless of physical distance and how we perceive that to be. So I gather everybody around this pool, and the lake of light is reflecting the energies that are needed at the time, and I invite each of us to share with the person to the left or the person to the right. Now, this is all happening energetically, but that's also having a profound effect in the real time. And I believe that when we can't connect in physical, to be actually allowing ourselves to do that and to having the intention to connect on that level, that's so important at the moment. But when we can gather together in physical, when we get the opportunity to do so, I think that's something that I am gravitating towards, and it's not just a passing, oh, that'll be nice. It's something that I'm feeling magnetically drawn to. So watch this space for next year for more gatherings, and whether it's local, whether it's outside of the local community. And I know that everybody else is feeling drawn to do this as well. It's not just me. When we gather together, when we join in that space, it provides an incredibly welcome relief from the intensity and the pressure that we're witnessing. It just disappears. And yes, we do have to re-immerse ourselves back into the whirlwind, but we feel more prepared to do so once we've reset ourselves, once we've shared with another like-minded, open-hearted soul, done something in ceremony, sat quietly, sung, moved, burnt incense, held a crystal, or just simply be silent. That's more important than ever at the moment. And if you're listening to this and you don't have the ability for that connection, then allow yourself those periods of silence during the day. Your aloneness won't last for long. It's one of the most common initiations on the spiritual pathway is to feel isolated and to feel unsupported by the physical realm or even the spiritual one. It's a period of silence that can be very, very testing and very challenging, and it does happen to us all at some point. So that's my take on the energies as we move into Virgo season. The importance of our connection. It's never been more prevalent and more important for us to be doing this at the moment. Wherever you are in the world, there will be communities beginning to come together, as so many of us that are spiritually awake now and are being instinctively drawn to do this. So begin to keep your eye out on social media, online. Maybe look for flyers in your local town or city, wherever you live, because something will be going on. We are all beginning to come together, and if we're all expecting it, if we're all wanting it, the universe will provide. Okay, my loves. Wow, that's all from me today. I'm going to go and drink a cup of coffee. It's definitely feeling more like my weather down here at the moment. And when it's really wet and pouring down with rain, I'll probably go for a walk and do one of the walk and talks. So wishing you all the most beautiful weekend, sending you love from my heart to yours, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.